Hi, welcome to English Hamster. Are you learning English? Great. Here we learn through stories. They are simple and interesting. You can improve English while learning knowledge. Remember to subscribe, like and comment. Let's get started.
Have you ever wondered why some students seem to learn faster, remember things better, and achieve more than others? Imagine walking into one of Harvard University's famous libraries. You see students quietly reading thick books, writing notes, and thinking deeply. These students are not born smarter than you. They simply know how to study smarter, not harder. Today, we're going to discover 6 study techniques that Harvard students use. These methods can help you learn better, no matter where you are or what you're studying. This isn't just about getting good grades. It's about transforming your entire approach to learning. By studying smarter, you can understand things deeply, remember them for a long time, and feel more confident about your studies. At the end of this guide, you'll see that studying like a Harvard student doesn't mean having a big brain or staying up all night with your books. It's all about small daily habits that bring big success. Technique 1. Active recall, learn by asking questions. Have you ever found yourself reading the same page over and over, only to forget what you just read? Many students think that reading more will help them remember things better, but it doesn't work that way. Simply reading without testing yourself doesn't help your brain remember deeply. At Harvard, students use a better way to study called active recall. Active recall is simple but powerful. Instead of reading your notes or textbook again and again, you stop and ask yourself questions about what you just learned. Then, you try to answer those questions from memory without looking at your notes. Afterward, you check your notes to see if you missed anything. This small change in your study routine can make a big difference. Why? Because it forces your brain to work harder. And real learning happens when your brain works hard, not when it just looks at things. Imagine you just read a page about the causes of the American Revolution. Instead of reading it 2 or 3 times, a Harvard student would close the book and ask themselves, what were the main causes of the American Revolution? Then, they would try to speak or write the answer. Afterward, they would check the book to see if they missed any important details. At first, this method may feel slow. You might even feel uncomfortable because you realize you don't remember everything. But that feeling is actually a good sign. It means your brain is making connections and building stronger memory pathways. The struggle is what makes your brain stronger, just like lifting weights makes your muscles stronger. You don't have to make it complicated. You can even use flashcards. Write the word on one side and the meaning on the other. Look at the word, try to say its meaning from memory, and only then flip the card to check if you were right. If you were wrong, that's okay. Just try again later. You can practice active recall anytime and anywhere. You don't need a desk or a special place. You can do it while waiting for the bus, during a walk, or before bed. Some Harvard students even create practice tests for themselves before the real exam. By doing this, they get used to recalling information under pressure, which helps them during the real exam. So, how can you start using active recall? After each study session, write 5 questions about what you learned. Then, try to answer them without looking at your notes. Or use flashcards to test your memory. Remember, active recall may feel harder than just reading, but that's why it works. Over time, it will help you learn faster and remember more. Technique 2. Spaced repetition, review at the right time. Have you ever tried to memorize something by reading it over and over, only to forget most of it the next day? Maybe you stayed up late, hoping that the more you read, the better you'd remember. Many students do this, but it doesn't work very well. Your brain doesn't like to keep information that you see only once, even if you look at it a lot in one day. The secret that many Harvard students use is called spaced repetition. Spaced repetition helps your brain remember things for a long time by reviewing them at the right moments. Instead of cramming everything in one night, you review your notes at certain times, such as the next day, after a few days, and then after a week or two. Imagine you are learning new vocabulary words. Today, you write down 10 new words. Tomorrow, you test yourself on them. Maybe you forget some of the words, so you review them again. 3 days later, you test yourself again and you remember more words. After a week, you test yourself again, and by then, most of the words stay in your memory without having to study them every single day. Why does this work? Because each time you recall the words, your brain has to work harder to remember them. This effort makes the memory stronger, just like exercising a muscle. The more you review, the easier it is to remember. The best time to review is just before you're about to forget something. This keeps the memory fresh and makes it stronger. Many Harvard students use apps like Anki and Quizlet to help with spaced repetition. These apps automatically remind you when it's time to review something. You don't have to worry about remembering the dates yourself. The app takes care of it. You can also use paper flashcards or a notebook. Just write down the things you want to remember and plan when to review them. Spaced repetition saves you time in the long run. When you try to cram all at once, you forget quickly and need to study again. But with spaced repetition, each review takes only a few minutes, and the information stays with you for weeks, months, or even years. You can use spaced repetition for any subject: history, science, math, or languages. The more you review, the less stressful studying will feel, and the more prepared you will be for exams. By making a habit of reviewing a little each day, you will feel more confident and less anxious about exams. Technique 3, the Feynman technique, teach to learn. Have you ever read something and thought, "I understand it," only to realize later that you can't explain it to someone else? This happens to many students. When you read or listen to something, you may think you understand it well, but when you try to explain it to others, you struggle. That's why many Harvard students use the Feynman technique. This technique is named after Richard Feynman, a famous physicist known for making complex ideas simple. His secret was this: if you can't explain something simply, you don't truly understand it yet. The Feynman technique helps you test your understanding by pretending that you need to teach the topic to someone else. This could be a friend, a classmate, or even yourself. The goal is to explain the topic as clearly and simply as possible. Let's say you're studying photosynthesis in biology. After reading about it, close your book and try to explain the process to yourself, out loud or in writing. You might say, photosynthesis is when plants make food using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. The plant turns these into glucose, a type of sugar. If you struggle to explain something or use complicated words, it shows you need to study that part more. Go back to your book, review the material, and then try explaining it again until you can do it clearly and confidently. The Feynman technique doesn't need any special tools. You can practice it anywhere. You don't need a whiteboard or a classroom. Just use a notebook or talk to yourself. After each study session, spend 5 minutes explaining what you learned. This helps you see where your understanding is weak and gives you a chance to fix it. It turns passive reading into active learning. Many Harvard students use this technique after every lecture or study session. They explain what they've learned in their own words. Some even make videos or recordings of themselves explaining topics so they can listen later and check their clarity. This technique helps you discover knowledge gaps. When you try to teach, you realize what you don't truly understand. Instead of feeling discouraged by this, think of it as a sign that you need to learn more about that part. When you can explain something simply, you know you've really understood it. The Feynman technique also reduces exam stress. When you get used to explaining topics without notes, you train your brain to recall and speak under pressure. This helps you feel calmer and more confident during tests. Technique 4, the Pomodoro method, focus in short bursts. Have you ever tried to study for hours and ended up forgetting most of what you read? Maybe you felt tired, distracted, or even started daydreaming about something else. Many students think that studying for a long time without breaks is the best way to learn. However, many Harvard students use a different method that works better, the Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method is a time management technique that breaks your study time into short, focused intervals. Each interval is called a Pomodoro, and it lasts for 25 minutes. During these 25 minutes, you focus only on one task, no phone, no distractions, just studying. After 25 minutes, you take a short 5-minute break. Then, you start another Pomodoro. After completing 4 Pomodoros, which is about 2 hours of study time, you take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. The Pomodoro method works well because our brains can only stay focused for a short amount of time. After 20 to 30 minutes of focus, your mind naturally wants to take a break. The Pomodoro method works with this natural rhythm instead of fighting against it. When you know that a break is coming soon, it becomes easier to start studying. It's less overwhelming to think, I only need to focus for 25 minutes, instead of thinking, I have to study for 3 hours. During your break, you can stand up, stretch, drink some water, or take a short walk. These breaks are important because they allow your brain to rest and reset, so you can stay focused for the next Pomodoro. The Pomodoro method also helps you beat procrastination. Often, the hardest part of studying is getting started. But if you tell yourself, I only need to study for 25 minutes, it feels more manageable and less intimidating. Once you start, you might feel motivated to do another Pomodoro and then another. Another great thing about the Pomodoro method is that the breaks allow your brain to process information in the background. This is called diffuse thinking. Sometimes, after taking a break, you may come back to your work with new ideas or a clearer understanding of something you were struggling with before. You don't need a special Pomodoro timer. You can use your phone's timer, a kitchen timer, or any online Pomodoro timer. The key is to work in short, focused bursts and then take a real break. This method keeps your study time efficient and helps protect your mental health. Studying for long hours without breaks can lead to burnout, but Pomodoros allow you to stay fresh and avoid feeling exhausted. Technique 5. Interleaving, mix different subjects. Have you ever studied only one subject for hours? Maybe you spent an entire afternoon doing math exercises or reading history notes. While this may seem simple and organized, many Harvard students know that studying only one subject for a long time is not always the best way to learn. This is where interleaving comes in. Interleaving means mixing different subjects or topics during your study time. At first, this might feel confusing. You might think, Won't I get mixed up if I study different things at once? But research shows that mixing subjects actually helps you learn better. Why does interleaving work? Our brains are stronger when we switch between different types of thinking. For example, when you move from studying history to doing math problems, your brain has to adjust from remembering dates and facts to solving problems. This back and forth strengthens your brain's ability to think flexibly and make connections between ideas. Let's say you're studying for the afternoon. Instead of reading history for 2 hours, try studying 30 minutes of history, then 30 minutes of math, then 30 minutes of English. By mixing subjects, your brain works harder and remembers more. At first, it might feel more difficult, but this challenge helps your brain make better connections between topics. Interleaving also prepares you for real exams. In most exams, you are tested on a variety of topics. You may be asked to answer questions from different subjects or even different types of questions in one exam. By practicing interleaving, you train your brain to switch between different types of thinking, which makes you feel more ready for any challenge. Another benefit of interleaving is that it keeps studying interesting. If you study the same subject for hours, it can get boring and your mind may start to wander. But when you mix subjects, each topic feels fresh and you're more likely to stay focused. Some students worry that interleaving will make them confused. But this feeling of struggle is actually a sign that your brain is working hard to organize and connect new information. The challenge helps your brain learn deeply, just like lifting heavier weights makes your muscles stronger. You don't have to follow a perfect schedule to start interleaving. Simply try studying a few subjects each day. For example, study history for 30 minutes, then math for 30 minutes, and then switch to English. Over time, you'll notice that you can remember more and feel more confident about your learning. Technique 6, mind mapping, see the big picture. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by all the facts and ideas you need to remember for a topic? Maybe you read a long chapter and think, how can I keep all of this in my mind? Many students face this problem, especially when the topic is large and complex. But Harvard students often use a simple tool to help them organize their thoughts, mind mapping. A mind map is a visual way to organize information. It's not just about drawing, it's about seeing how all the ideas connect like pieces of a puzzle. You start with a central idea or topic in the middle of the page. For example, if you're studying the causes of World War II, you could write Causes of World War II in the center of the page. Then, you draw branches going out from the center, each representing a main factor like political, economic, or social reasons. From each of these branches, you can draw smaller branches to show specific details. For example, under political factors, you could write things like Rise of Hitler, Treaty of Versailles, or Failure of the League of Nations. Keep branching out until you have a clear visual representation of the entire topic. Mind mapping helps because your brain loves to make connections. When you look at a mind map, you don't just see a list of words, you see relationships between them. Instead of remembering facts on their own, you remember them as part of a larger story. Because you create the map yourself, it becomes a mental picture that you can easily recall later. You don't need to be an artist to create a mind map. You just need a pen and paper. If you want, you can use colors, arrows, and symbols to make it clearer and more memorable. For example, you could use red for political topics, blue for economic topics, and green for social topics. You could also draw stars for the most important points or arrows to show cause and effect. Mind mapping is useful for any subject. In literature, you can make a mind map for a book, with branches for the characters, themes, events, and symbols. In science, you can map a concept like photosynthesis with branches for sunlight, water, and glucose. In language learning, you can map new vocabulary by topics, such as travel, with branches for transportation, accommodation, and activities. Mind mapping doesn't just help you remember, it helps you understand. By organizing the information in a visual way, you are making connections and seeing patterns you might have missed. This makes the material easier to remember and more meaningful. Over time, you'll discover that making mind maps is not only helpful, but also fun. It turns studying from a boring task into a creative activity. Combining the techniques. The 6 techniques we've discussed are powerful on their own, but when you use them together, they can create an even stronger system for learning. For example, you could start your day with a Pomodoro session where you study a topic. Then, use active recall to test what you remember. After a break, use the Feynman technique to explain what you've learned. Later, you can review what you studied using spaced repetition. You can also mix subjects using interleaving and create a mind map to help you see how everything fits together. Imagine a typical study day. You start with a Pomodoro session, study a topic, and then use active recall to test what you remember. During your break, you relax. After your second Pomodoro, you explain the topic using the Feynman technique. Later, you review what you studied using spaced repetition, and then mix subjects using interleaving. In the evening, you create a mind map to summarize everything you've learned. This combination of techniques creates a routine where you are constantly testing yourself, reviewing information, and making connections. As a result, studying becomes smarter, not harder, and you will remember things better and for longer. You won't need to cram before exams because you've been learning actively every day. Final thoughts: study smarter, not harder. You don't need to be at Harvard to study like a Harvard student. The secret is not about being smarter or having more time. It's about building small, effective habits that you can do every day. The 6 techniques we've discussed: active recall, spaced repetition, the Feynman technique, the Pomodoro method, interleaving, and mind mapping, can change how you study and help you learn more effectively. Start with one technique. Maybe try active recall tonight. After you study, close your book and ask yourself questions about what you learned. Tomorrow, try adding spaced repetition by reviewing what you studied. Over time, you will notice that your memory improves and your confidence will grow. Remember, the key to success is not in studying harder but studying smarter. Little by little, you will see big results. Your brain will thank you, and your future self will be proud of the work you put in today.
Hey, if you learned something new today, please give this video a like. Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second and it really helps to create more English videos for you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.